Raise the Black Hawk helicopter.
S25, get the CRJ in flight. S25, have fun, is CRJ. S12 has a aircraft in flight for separation.
All right, no response from the Black Hawk. Do you have the plane in sight? The air traffic controller is asking, and they get no response. Now, we went through and we started looking at some of the very strange, erratic movements of this helicopter. When you look at how this helicopter flew, and the plane there you see is the helicopter, makes some zigzag turns as it's coming down the Potomac River, and then right before crashing into, almost looked like turning into this American Eagle flight landing there. So you've got the erratic movements of this helicopter. Then I found the elevation data for the Black Hawk helicopter. When it took off, it started about 1,100 feet, slowly descending to about 800 feet, then to 700 feet. Then, right before the crash, about 30 seconds, the elevation swiftly drops from 700 feet to 400 feet, and we know the crash took place at 250 feet. So why the sudden drop in elevation? This is a serious issue now as we try to place blame and figure out who is to blame, of course, for all of this. This is Pete Hegseth, the new Secretary of Defense, talking about the elevation issues.
Military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level.
We'll make one thing very clear. Black Hawk helicopters fly up and down the Potomac River very, very regularly. These pilots, and apparently the pilot that was flying the Black Hawk was a very seasoned pilot, not new to this type of environment, wearing night vision goggles. That could pose an issue, but I'm not buying the vision issues. These pilots fly this flight all the time. This idea that the plane's lights blended in with the city lights, I just don't see it. So I look at the erratic flight path. I look at the no answer by the plane. I look at the fact that a reasonable person would suspect there's a possibility this could have been deliberate when you look at the video of the helicopter literally smashing into the plane. And then, of course, we may never know the answers because we have this problem, according to Lieutenant Colonel Galb on Fox News.
Now, the Black Hawk, this particular model of Black Hawk, does not have that capability. So you have to go off the evidence that you get from either eyewitnesses, radar tracks, and ATC recordings, voice recordings. You're not going to get a black box off the Black Hawk that will help you in that regard. So there's a chance that there's very little caught on recording that will truly help this.
So there is no voice recorder inside the Black Hawk helicopter. There's no collision avoidance system like there is inside commercial airliners inside a Black Hawk. That wouldn't make any sense. You figure these Black Hawks are in battle flying 6, 7, 8 helicopters side by side. The collision avoidance would be going off all the time. But the voice recorder, I maybe could see in combat you can't have one in case, God forbid, they fell into the hands of the enemy. But flying missions in the United States, they ought to have voice recorders. So what could have happened here? I'm not pushing conspiracy theories. I'm only going to give you a list of how I see it, of the things investigators need to be looking at. Could have this been pilot error or a deliberate act or even terror on behalf of the pilot? We have seen inside our own military that they have engaged sometimes in terror-style actions. It has to be investigated. Not saying it's true, but it has to be investigated. There's a human error factor in all of this. Was there a mechanical issue? Was the pilot working to try to keep the helicopter slow and steady while dealing with a mechanical issue? Is that why he couldn't have responded? Then, of course, you've got to wonder, was there an air traffic control issue? And I will tell you this, you can't rule out the possibility of a computer hack. We've talked about the ability of China to take over large yachts and even private jets. We know this is proven to be true. We've had sources inside the federal government that has said this is to be true. And then I saw this news release on the Lockheed Martin website. This is about a Black Hawk helicopter, a matrix system it's called, that can fly autonomously from 300 miles away. So if it has an autonomous system on a Black Hawk, could the system somehow be hacked? It is something you'd have to look at. This is a promo video for that autonomous system by Lockheed Martin.
You're going to see the aircraft come up to a stabilized hover, and this is going to simulate contested logistics operations where we would have a ground crew hooking up a sling load to the aircraft.
And this aircraft is holding position remarkably well.
It's fascinating technology. All of these are questions that need to be answered. Every single aspect of this needs to be investigated. And we'll get into air traffic control a little bit later on in this program. But right now, I want to break down exactly what is going on with the Black Hawk helicopter. And for that, I want to bring in now Marine Corps Colonel William Burner Dunn. He is retired. And welcome to the program, Colonel. It is great to have you on the program.
Hey, Grant, hey, thanks for having me. Sorry we're getting together and meeting for the first time on such a tragic event.
It really is. And Colonel, I'm glad you're on. You flew attack helicopters. When you look at this now, you and I spoke this morning on my radio program. Have you had any time over the last 8 hours or so to assess more of what possibly could have gone down here?
You know, I have. I watched the video. I've watched it at length. I've listened to quite a bit of the commentary and quite a bit of the air traffic control of what they have. And what I think we're going to find out is the Black Hawk was probably looking at the wrong aircraft. When the ATC said, see and avoid this jetliner, I think they were looking at the one that was taking off that you can see in some of the video. And while they're focused on that, I think they lost situational awareness and ended up in the flight path. No matter what, they ended up in the flight path. So we know that for a fact. The question is why did they get into the flight path? As Secretary Hegseth mentioned today, they've already started the mishap investigation. And I think that's going to go a long way in helping determine what actually happened. And one of the things I want to bring out while I can is I have been pushing for over 2 years now to get the Navy and the Marine Corps to put in voice data recorders into all of our aircraft. And I think in this instance, this shows exactly why. I've lost too many friends, and some of them we have no idea why we lost them. They're just aircraft crashed, and we have no idea. I am a proponent of putting them in, and I think that would help solve these issues and maybe would have shed light into this particular incident.
You know, I hate to besmirch the name of any of these pilots because we don't know if there was wrongdoing or not. You talk about some of the crashes that your friends and colleagues have had over the years that are still unknown. Does suicide cross your mind? Is that a possibility? Will investigators look at that?
I don't think so. They may look at it. You know, I don't know how many pilots you know, but most pilots I know are very, very, we're all very self-important. And that is not a normal, although I have had some friends commit suicide, that is not a normal concern that we have. And I do not suspect that this air crew purposely crashed into this jet.
All right. And that makes me feel better about things for sure. Though in this day and age, I'll tell you what, everything that I've seen, what people out there watch have seen, I don't rule out anything anymore. This idea of night vision goggles. So apparently they were wearing them. I've fooled around with night vision goggles. You turn the lights on, it really causes quite an issue. Do they help you in a city like Washington, D.C.? I would think the night vision goggles could cause more of a problem than help.
Absolutely. I've got over 1,000 hours of night vision goggle time in the Cobra. They still will help you see a jet airliner at night, but flying them and flying with them in the city is difficult. Typically what pilots do and I will speak for myself, is they will lift up the goggles so that what you're doing is you're looking under them, and when you need to put them down, you can.
Let me play a clip for you. This is radio traffic. At first, I thought they were talking to the Black Hawk helicopter. Now I'm hearing they were talking to a Coast Guard chopper. Maybe you could help me decipher who air traffic control is talking to when they're talking about going back to base. Let's roll cut 7.
503000, American 3130.
Blue Sheep at 347, go around, climb, maintain 3000, flight
3000, heading 7, go around 3000, Blue Streak 5347.
Blackjack 3, can you return to base? Blackjack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dollar for a few minutes? Muscle 7, proceed due westbound, contact Dollar Tower 120.1. Muscle 1.
Blackjack 3, does it give you any idea of what they're talking about? Can you clue me in here, Colonel?
There's two possibilities. One discussion I had earlier today is that the Black Hawk transponder may not have been working. If the Black Hawk's transponder wasn't working, they would have been told to go back to base, most likely to fix that. I don't know if they were talking to the Black Hawk or not. They haven't released the call sign of the Black Hawk, as far as I could tell. It sounds like to me, when I listened to that, I think they were talking to a different aircraft, not the Black Hawk. And that would be logical to me. We've heard about the overstress of those air traffic controllers. And what happens in a case like this, whether it's the pilot's fault, whether it is the air traffic controller's fault, it's task saturation.
You know, one of the things that I've always seen in every tragedy, this holds true. It's usually a series of events. It's not just the pilot did one thing wrong. It's a series of events that lead up to the tragedy. I have a feeling we're going to end up seeing something like that play out here, Colonel.
I think we will. I think it's going to be a combination. If you're flying and the air traffic controller is a little bit late on their discussions, on their calls, then you're going to execute the best way you can. And like I say, I'm not saying that happened right now, but I think we're going to see that it has some impact there.
Yeah. Kurt, I'll tell you what, it's great talking to you. And I reiterate the same thing you said. I hate that it's under these circumstances, but I appreciate your service in the United States Marine Corps, my favorite branch of the military, by the way. My grandfather was a Marine. And I hope I get to talk to you again soon under better circumstances. But we appreciate your insight on all of this.
Yes, sir. And the Marine Corps is also my favorite branch of the service as well, and the best, of course.
As well it should be, Colonel, as well it should be. All right, folks, you know, all of us are praying for the victims' families and all of this. It's just a horrific tragedy. But you've got to ask now, what about the air traffic control's role in all of this? We've now learned that air traffic control at Reagan Airport is down to 19 air traffic controllers. They should have a staff of 30. We do know that Joe Biden put in place all kinds of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, policies that limited the ability to hire very good air traffic controllers. President Trump was not shy about pointing this out today.
The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them. They can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so.
You know, to all my loyal Cinchfield's Army members, you remember on this program, we talked about that exact directive, and we gave the exact quote about severe psychiatric problems you want as an air traffic controller. The lunacy behind making a decision like that. Well, as you can imagine, all of this seems to be playing out. The media doesn't like President Trump's talking about it, but he doesn't care. He's a bold leader, and he's trying to fix the problem.
A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there.
Again, I want to be very clear here. We don't know if this was an air traffic control problem, if it was a pilot problem, if it was both. But when you get to the root of all of this, do you care whether the air traffic controller is white or black? I don't. I just want the best air traffic controller. Well, the media went totally nutso over President Trump's comments on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Caitlin Collins, you know her. She's a doozy, boy, over there at NBC. She was in the White House press briefing room as President Trump was giving his assessment of all of this, and she came at him like this, and it didn't end well for her.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane, you think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They are a
blaming
group of
DEI
people that have
policies?
lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question.
But are you
I'm surprised coming from you.
Not a very smart question. That is Caitlin Collins, one of my least favorite at the mainstream media. So we are just learning now that it's being reported that the co-pilot of the Black Hawk helicopter was a female pilot with 500 hours, not making any judgment on that, only giving you information so we continue to assess the situation there. Joining me now, the managing editor over at Newsbusters at the Media Research Center, our friend Curtis Houck is back with us. Curtis, welcome to the program.
Always a pleasure, Grant. But yeah, this one's a tough one.
It is. And I want to thank you, Curtis. I'm going to tell you, you did such a great job of putting information out there, not just negative about the media. You had very informative stuff early on. I was following your Twitter feed. I urge everyone to follow you on Twitter. It was very, very helpful. So thank you for that. But I want to ask you specifically about the media and their reaction. They're going nuts over this diversity, equity, and inclusion claim by President Trump. And I mean, they're trying to make it out like it's the worst thing that ever happened.
Yeah, what's interesting is President Trump is just kind of doing what you were doing at your monologue. He was raising a whole bunch of different possibilities. He wasn't specifically suggesting one over the other was going to prevail as the reason why, and I don't really see entirely what the problem is. I personally, my style of things, I wouldn't, but this is who President